winter. It's that time of year again where, in best case, it's snowy and beautiful winter wonderland like it is right now. And in Sweden, where I live, everyone releases their inner child. And they go sledding, cross country skiing, and tons of adventures.
But let's be real, winter can also be awful. Between the darkness and the cold, it can feel like the season is never gonna end, and at least I know that I struggle with energy levels and I feel like I can get bored out of my mind. Usually, I try to escape this by traveling somewhere warm, but this year I thought that I would embrace the seasonality of winter and lean into boredom and see what happens. So, for the last 2 months, I have been isolating at home, saying no to all excess activities, both work and social. Only if I really had to, I've gone, and otherwise, I stayed by myself and using my free time to explore my thoughts and different levels of boredom. And what's crazy is that I actually feel more rejuvenated and refreshed than when I go on an exotic holiday. And so I thought I'd make this video to share what I've learned, because I know that a lot of people want to unplug but maybe don't know how. And the first thing I've learned is that there's a balance between distraction and boredom, where on the one hand, when we're always busy, whether that's on our phones, scrolling social media, or socializing, it leaves us in this constant state of distraction where we become disconnected from our authentic self and what I believe is our potential. At the same time, too much boredom can make us feel down and lethargic and so unpleasant that studies show that people prefer having an electrical shock to them than being stuck in boredom. Yet I believe that boredom has a role in our society, and as Steve Jobs put it, I'm a big believer in boredom. Boredom allows us to indulge in curiosity, and out of curiosity comes everything. And there's other studies that have shown that people on the right level of boredom are more likely to engage in both problem solving and creative thinking. So how do we find that right level of boredom, where we have enough space to let our mind wander, but not so much that we become lethargic? For me, I realized that it's mostly 3 simple things that I can do that almost guarantees me to get into the right state of mind. The first thing I do is daily physical movement, and it doesn't matter if it's stretching I do at home, or dancing to one of my favorite songs, or if I go out on a run in a proper workout. It's not so much the intensity of the workout as it is reconnecting to my physical body and letting oxygen go through the system. The second thing I do is to activate my mind, and there's a difference between stimuli and what I'm referring to. Stimuli like social media or Netflix is usually something I compare to what fast food is to our body, aka it fills a space but doesn't necessarily nourish us. And instead what I'm referring to here is something that's more qualitative, like a home-cooked, nutritious meal. And so I activate my mind by, for example, taking 5 minutes and really learning about something that I'm curious about. It can also be something non-intellectual that puts me into a state of wonder. Personally, I like to get up early and catch the sunrise. It almost always gets me to this positive and curious state of mind. And the final thing I do is to relax into boredom. And what I mean by that is that I remove all expectations of productivity or be a certain way, and instead I just allow myself to be present and enjoy it. I found that in that state of mind, thoughts flow much more naturally to me, and all I get to do is just keep a mental note of what's popping up. So, what have I learned from this winter boredom experiment? The first and most profound thing has been self-trust and authenticity. By allowing myself to hear my inner voice again, it's like I've gained a new trust in my opinion, and I find that I don't want external advice to the same extent that I used to. Basically, I've understood that in the end of the day, it's only me who actually knows what my values are and what I want to get out of life. And the next thing I learned was much more unexpected. I didn't think that 2 months in solitude was going to teach me as much about relationships in my life that it has. I think it's because I didn't travel somewhere but rather stayed in my hometown. I've had to manage people's expectations, and that has honestly been the more tricky thing of this experiment. I've practiced saying no and not just making up an excuse for another day, but rather being honest about the fact that I want to prioritize alone time. And I found that some people have really understood it and others really haven't. And so it's taught me both what I value in friendships and made me see who my real tribe is, where I can be my authentic self versus an idea of self. And coming out of this winter experiment, I realized that I want to continue making space for solitude and boredom. So I'm sure there'll be more learnings as I go forward. Now, is it time for you to make space for boredom in your life? To that, I would say, ask yourself, when was the last time you were bored? And does the thought of being in solitude scare you? Because depending on your answer, it could be that boredom is a more powerful tool of self-discovery than booking that next holiday or adrenaline adventure. And if you do decide to try out boredom, I would set a set time frame. It doesn't have to be 2 months like I did. It can be 1 week or 1 month. And then practice on saying no to distractions and make sure to create the right level of boredom. You might just find that you become more refreshed and rejuvenated the way that I feel like I have.